Hi, I'm the encoder. I can draw a bit, but I have much to say. So I'll speak to you. Let's get on with it then. Today we're talking Foodie Beauty, grift. Let me start by saying that Foodie Beauty as a brand is not very viewer-friendly, and I don't mean it in a literal manner, regarding her hostility and rudeness. I'm also talking about the lack of consumer perspective. In PR, you're taught that you have to put yourself in the consumer's shoes and see the product or service you're offering from their perspective. Does what you have to give meet their needs and demands? If not, as a business, you're destined to fail. Chantal wonders why she's so widely and strongly disliked. Telling her audience to sit and spin is not exactly the most inviting phrase she could extend to them. She has often justified her outbursts as her defending herself. Standing up for yourself doesn't equate to abrasiveness or abusive catchphrases that you use over and over. But let's focus on the grifting. Foodie Beauty doesn't seem to understand that if you raise funds with a premise of using them in a specific way, which you don't intend to, falls under doing something with false pretenses, otherwise known as fraud. It's difficult to understand why she gets angry and shouts that people are accusing her of scamming the public by collecting money she won't be using for its intended purpose, when that is exactly what she's doing, and she has done it many times before. When I first started watching her in 2018, people were commenting under her videos that on many occasions she hasn't followed through with what she had promised to her viewers and to herself. People felt disappointed and betrayed. They said she was full of hot air and nothing else, and that they were now turning away from her. I thought they were being judgmental and mean, not knowing, of course, what Chantal is all about. I discovered the hard way that she lies and changes her mind more frequently than she visits the restroom. Her word means nothing, and it isn't a promise to rely on. During her last trip to Canada, she had rented an apartment and had collected funds from her viewers to help her buy furnishings, kitchen equipment she needed, as well as necessities for the cat she adopted. Not even a week later, she packed house, gave everything away, including Smokey the cat, and back to Syria she went. To be quite blunt, she dumped the cat she was supposed to have helped rescue. People who donated money to her saw their funds go down the toilet. It's ironic that Foodie resorts to the phrase, sit and spin, all the time, when spinning tales is all she does. Changing her spin is also quite a regular occurrence in her daily life. Not too long ago, she kept promoting the message that Syria was a very safe place to be in, despite its current troubled administrative and political state. She wouldn't hear a word of it, no matter what concerns her beezers expressed. Suddenly, Syria is volatile, according to her, and she says that 2 people got shot in their shop in the last day or two, nearby her and Salah's place of residence. Foodie protests that the money she is collecting won't be going to Salah, and that it is nobody's business what exactly is going on in her finances. If you're not donating, she claims, you have no place demanding to know what she's doing with the funds. She seems confused about public fundraisers. It is the public's business to know where every cent of public money from a public fundraiser is going. So we don't trust anything she says. That includes her reassurance, in her very own words, that Salah is the second parent to Julia, so he will be taking care of her if Chantal can't realize her transfer to Canada. Salah couldn't even be bothered to look after the cat after moving with her to Syria. Upon arrival, he immediately gave her into the care of somebody else. He's not to be trusted as a responsible and caring pet parent. Unfortunately, Julia's future is very bleak, as is the fate of any animal who comes into the hands of Chantal. This woman is so devious, she even forced her friend and former housemate Pete to falsify his gender identity as trans in order to avoid the anger of Nader, who wanted to harm Pete's physically because he considered it a disgrace that the woman he was sleeping with was living with her former boyfriend. If Pete's revealed himself as trans, the violent Nader wouldn't see any threat in him and would allow Foodie to continue sharing her accommodation with him. It is disgraceful and debilitating to a person's dignity, having to falsify their identity or any detail of their life in order to suit the toxic demands of a very unreasonable woman. It would be equally humiliating for a trans person to force themselves as a gender they felt unrelated to. Foodie expects there to be no boundaries where her convenience is concerned. In the most recent stunt, Pete's first name and surname had to be publicly exposed in order for her fundraiser to be a possibility. There is no sacred ground when Chantal is involved in your life. Foodie gets infuriated when people tell her to get a job in order to earn her way back to Canada because her expectations that visas cover her airfare, accommodation, furnishing of her required rental villa, and even the purchase of a car is beyond audacious. She snaps that she has the job. Chantal, lying back on your couch and talking about food you like isn't a job. If you ask any YouTuber who reacts to movies, music, events, or other YouTubers, they will tell you they don't consider their video making or streams a job. They are a hobby or a side hustle. I will wrap this up by saying to you, Chantal, you had the most infuriatingly unrealistic expectations when you moved to the Gulf. You remind me of the woman in White Maasai who moved to Kenya expecting her very African husband adapts to her Western culture. She engaged in behavior that emasculated him, and naturally the marriage didn't last. In no way did she do anything near the inappropriate activity of vulgar public speech and raging or belittling of other people that you did, Chantal. The gist here is that where two people from such vastly different cultures come together, it is extremely difficult to make their two worlds meet and to make a relationship work. As it is, relationships are extremely challenging and difficult to maintain. You went into this with rose-colored lenses that normally a 15-year-old wears when she first meets somebody she becomes infatuated with. My final word is that if you really intended to fly back to Canada with Julia or to remain in Canada indefinitely, you would have already inquired how much it would cost you to take the poor cat home. You responded to a viewer's question regarding transit expenses with an "I don't know" in your most recent streams. Either you don't intend to take Julia with you, or you don't intend to remain in Canada for too long. Either way, the cat is staying in a very uncertain and unhappy future in Syria. And you're acting on false pretenses. You're lying, Foodie. When are you not?